Ararat Kostanian, thank you very much for joining me on Syriana Analysis from Yerevan. You're a political researcher and analyst, and I would like to discuss with you the recent developments in Armenia from the Armenian perspective, as it is very important to shed light on the recent aggression of Azerbaijan on Armenia and show the Armenian perspective, as unfortunately, lots of media outlets have turned a blind eye to the atrocities of Azerbaijan on one hand, and also on the legal and moral rights of the Armenians in the region. Now, the recent Azerbaijani aggression against Armenia came after the war of words, as Aliyev called it, who vowed to annex southern Armenia in the coming or in the near future. What is the significance of this southern part of Armenia, or the southern territory, for Armenia and for Azerbaijan, and why the latter, or Azerbaijan, wants to occupy it?
Hello, Kevor. Thank you for the invitation. Actually, this scenario, it's repeating itself after 100 years. We know from history well, we Armenians, we historians, experts, we know very well the significance of the southern part of Armenia, which called the region Syunik. For Armenians, it's a gateway that connects with Iran, and also geostrategically, geopolitically, this region is very important for regional and global powers as well. But for Armenians, as I've mentioned, it's a gateway, and it's an important border that connects us with Iran. And we should remember that during the 90s, when the war broke in Artsakh, that was the only border that we had with the outside world. And this time, and if Armenia loses this portion, it will be more landlocked, and it will be isolated from the world, and it will be under daily threat from Turkey and Azerbaijan. So what Azerbaijan is expecting or demanding, that is known to everybody. Again, I'm coming to the historical fact. That time, Karakin-Nishte was able to keep Syunik inside the borders of Armenia. He was fighting both with the Turkish forces, with the communists that time. So now, what Azerbaijan is expecting, that if he can come deep into the Armenian sovereign territory, and if he can take some lands from Syunik, and they can connect to Nakhichevan and throughout with Turkey. So it means that Azerbaijan, if they are able to go to this escalation and gain territories from Armenia, they can be able to unite with Turkey, and Turkey can be able to unite with Azerbaijan, and they can create this tyrannic, or if you want to call it, new Ottoman Empire in this South Caucasus area. And if this happens, they can all the way go and reach to Central Asia. This is the plan of the Turks and Azeris more than 100 years, or more than that even.
Now, Baku justified its aggression against Armenia because, as Azerbaijan claims, the latter hadn't signed a peace treaty recognizing Azerbaijan's quote-unquote territorial integrity. What does territorial integrity mean for Azerbaijan, and what does territorial integrity mean for Armenia?
Azerbaijan is said from the beginning, from the 90s, and now, moreover, they are not being able to accept the fact that Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, belongs to Armenians, and with self-determination and with the war that followed, Armenians were able to unite the land, and they established an Armenian Second Republic, which is called Artsakh. But after this war, even, although at this moment Armenian government and the parliament does exist in Artsakh, the Russian peacekeepers are there, but the institutes of Armenians in Artsakh does exist to this moment. But the Azerbaijani side, they don't want to accept this fact, and they don't want to grasp the notion that territorial integrity cannot be without Artsakh. So they want to grasp Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh inside Azerbaijan. Even they don't accept the notion to give autonomy to the Armenians. So they are saying in two words that Karabakh issue doesn't exist. The Armenians living there should take Azerbaijani citizenship and just live in those territories. Actually, it's not possible, because we have seen previously what happens to the Armenians who are living there, and that's why they requested to have self-determination and country, because Azerbaijanis through the years during the Soviet time assimilated, and they didn't let the Armenians to have their own schools, to have their own churches, practice their church duties, and etc., etc. Armenians cannot live under the Turks in any circumstances. This should be clear to everybody.
I will just show the audience the map of Artsakh. It could not be 100% correct, but overall, this is what is left from Artsakh after the 2020 war. And Armenia is seeking for a corridor from this side to connect itself to the rest of Artsakh. And Azerbaijan is seeking to establish a corridor from the southern part of Armenia here to connect its territories from the eastern side to the western side of Nakhichevan. But I would like to come back to the core of the issue today. For example, Azerbaijan says that Armenia has to open a corridor in the south to connect Azerbaijan to its Nakhichevan exclave, right? Is this corridor going to be from the Azerbaijani side on Armenian territories, like we're talking about sovereign Armenian territories? And what is the position of Iran in this regard?
Let me clarify this issue, because some people, even among Armenians around the world, or I'm not talking about experts, just ordinary people, are being confused to understand what's happening here. If two countries, they sign together a peace treaty, so it will be open borders and both sides can pass through, or even other countries can pass through with cargoes or their shipments, etc. But what Azerbaijan is requesting, even they are not agreeing to the just two-way roads between the two countries, they are requesting to have corridor. What corridor means? That they will take some parts from that road, and it will be under their control. This is unacceptable for Armenia, and it is unacceptable for everybody. Why you should come and gain some roads and some, territory, and you put under your control. So that's why this war erupted now, because the Armenian side, both the political parties and even the government, didn't agree about this corridor issue. What the government was saying, if we will sign a peace treaty, we will open up our borders for everybody from both sides, from Turkey maybe in the future. But Azerbaijan didn't accept this deal, so it started the war to pressure on Armenia to even with such an advancement, they were thinking to gain some land and put that corridor into reality. Of course, they didn't achieve their goal. They didn't achieve their goal at the moment.
They didn't, but as far as I see on some of the maps on social media, that only 20 kilometers separates now Azerbaijan from sealing the borders with Armenia and having an access to Nakhichevan.
They came deep into the lands of Armenia. They have captured around 10 kilometers square, but I mean, they didn't achieve their goal until now. So now at the moment it's a ceasefire.
Yeah. And what about Iran? What's the position of Iran in this regard?
Actually, Iran, from the start, 2 years ago when the war started on Artsakh, Iran declared that the Armenian borders shouldn't be changed, and that is a red line for Iran. And now Iran officially repeating the same thing. They are saying that it's a red line. We cannot accept any changes in the borders of Armenia, and especially in the borders between Iran and Armenia. And they have settled their troops on the border.
Now,
I mean, regarding Iran, I believe that they have the sense that this war also not between Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey per se, but also it's regarding to Iran. They are trying to isolate Iran for the future wars that they can be possible if, I don't know, if that Israel will attack or Israel will use Azerbaijani territories, these territories to attack Iran. That's why Iran is very concerned about it.
It could also, it is also not only like militarily speaking, but intelligence-wise, also Azerbaijan is an advanced territory for Israel to spy on Iran, and also the Azeris that live in Iran, that the Azerbaijani side and the Israeli side could attempt to provoke or encourage them to rise against the government in Iran and replace it back with the Shah regime, right? But during negotiations, I know that two sides usually have like demands, right? Preconditions, whatever. But as far as I see that it's only Azerbaijan who is raising demands from the Armenian side. Does the Armenian side has any demands at all from Azerbaijan?
Well, you mentioned what you have mentioned is right. Azerbaijan have put a few demands, but as I said, Armenia didn't accept that corridor issue. But Armenia in general, they are talking more about peace, to reach a peace deal. They are not putting their preconditions, and it's surprisingly they are not attacking now, just advancing. I mean, out of a sudden, your enemy country attacking you, and just you are on the defensive mode. You are not trying to attack, even in small, or I don't know, even if tactically, to change the mode and not to make the ambitious Azerbaijan to have the desire to advance more. But if we look to the Armenian official statements, we are seeing that they are talking about peace deal, peace, regional peace, and etc. They are not in the mode of, I don't know, to lead war, or
maybe they are not in a position of power to give any. Maybe they're not in a position of power to put any preconditions, probably under the Pashinyan government, right?
I don't believe that we are in that condition, that we are unable to do something or change the condition, because I would like to remind our listeners, guests, that during the first war on Artsakh, Armenia also in capabilities was not advancing Azerbaijan, but with their ambition and with their will, they advanced and they have been able to liberate the territory. I mean, it's not logic when you are not capitulated. You have the army, you have your allies, but you are talking only to reach peace. If you talk more about peace, you will lose more. That is my perception.
But many Armenians are disappointed by the Russian passive response to the Azerbaijani aggression on Armenia, although the latter is a member of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO. Why Russia didn't intervene to protect its ally, and why Armenia in the first place has to plea to its allies every time Azerbaijan violates Armenian borders?
Well, I believe this time Azerbaijan used the chance, because we know that the last week or the last 10 days in Ukraine, Russia was having a condition that Ukrainians were advancing in some villages, and there was tension. And I believe Azerbaijan used this chance and invaded Armenia, or didn't invade, I mean, attacked Armenia. So the one reason is this. The second reason, I believe that Russians are cautious that through Azerbaijan and Turkey, the West is trying to open another front here in South Caucasus against Russia. If the war escalates in this region, Turkey will again involve, and Russia will be also forced to involve, and that will be another big regional war. In that matter, I believe Russians maybe have calculated just to trying diplomatically to calm things down rather than to involved in a big regional war here.
So there are observers who say that the Azerbaijani aggression, the current aggression on Armenia, has geopolitical significance, both regionally and internationally, and they are also trying to link it to the Ukraine war. Do you agree that there is a correlation between the Ukraine war and the recent Azerbaijani aggression on Armenia?
Yes, totally. As I have mentioned, what I have articulated about this second front issue, that is related with the interests of Russia in Ukraine, in this, and the interest of the countries, the West, the NATO in this region against Russia and Iran. And also that is also, I can link that to Middle East also. I mean, the continuous attacks by Israel on Syria after the war ended, that is also, I believe, they are trying to get involved Russia to re-involve, if you could say, militarily in the region, and again escalate that region into a war. This it's hybrid wars today started to be more seen as a war of trapping the one side in the other region and vice versa.
Now, there is this Turkish and Russian cooperation slash competition in the region, right? Not only in the Middle East, in the Caucasus, and even further. And some people say that this cooperation and competition between Turkey and Russia refrained Moscow from supporting Yerevan, and because it is also correlated to the upcoming elections in Ankara, which Russia would like to see Erdogan re-elected. Do you also see it from this perspective, that this competition coordination between Russia and Turkey in different files in the region has refrained Russia from weighing in this conflict in the Caucasus because they have bigger strategic, I would say, interests to preserve in the region and not to lose Erdogan at this point?
I believe on this stance that since the end of the Syrian war, if we might call it, started I would not call it cooperation between Russia and Turkey. I would call it strategic cooperation for a time being, if we might say so. From the Russian part, what Russia is thinking, in my opinion, they are trying to win time, not to anger Turkey militarily, because we know that Turkey is a big force militarily in the region, both in Middle East and in South Caucasus. So they are trying, the Russians, to get not permanent, but tactical negotiations with the Turkish part and agreeing on some point, not to make Turkey militarily getting involved back in this region and in Middle East again. So, like we have this, we know that this S-400 issue and other economic cooperations, that I think to further a bit Turkey from NATO, not letting NATO directly force Turkey to attack on the ground in these regions. But I believe that that will not take very long, because at the end, many experts also coming also from the historical fact, they are making the notion that at the end, Russia and Turkey in this region and in Middle East as well, they will clash. This will be the last wars, if you want, in all these regions. But at the moment, Russia has more important for itself, for its strategies, more important issues such as Ukraine. And Syria should be the issue should be solved, and the war and the sanctions should be finished. And then I think Russia will turn to South Caucasus and solve the problems here. So what I believe that they are closing an eye on Turkey at the moment, just to solve the bigger problems and get Turkey also in problem or in tension with its NATO allies as well.
I just want to go back just a little bit to this Zangetor border crossing, because it is also very important for, as you mentioned, to Iran. And I would like to ask you if this corridor has been established by force by the Azerbaijani side. What are the geo-economic consequences for Tehran if such a corridor is established? And do you expect Iran to move militarily to defend its interests?
As I have mentioned before, just now about Russia, that goes same to, in some extent, to Iran as well, because the target here also not only Russian interests, but also Iran, because they are the West, or more precisely, its allies, Israel, Turkey, they will try to isolate Iran. So when Iran is isolated with this border with Armenia, they will be totally under the control of Azerbaijan and Turkey. So it will not have the window to Armenia and from Armenia to Georgia. So that is why Iran is very concerned. And I believe if that happens, it's very difficult to do a prediction now, but the seriousness of Iran shows that it's the second time, first time in 2 years ago during the war on Artsakh, and now this time the war on Armenia. Iran has put forces on the border.
I just want to wrap up with you this conversation about the current, I would say, government in Armenia, the Pashinyan government. Do you expect the Pashinyan government to successfully maneuver and negotiate on the Armenian interests, or are we going to witness a second capitulation treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia?
I mean, during this administration, I don't see much the ability of maneuvering. If the previous administration were playing very well in maneuvering between Russia and the West, if you might call it, and even though sometimes the Russians were not happy that Armenia was coming close to some Western countries, especially the European countries, especially France and etc. But I don't see this administration is having or being able to maneuver between Russia and the West. In their political psychology, they are more Western-minded. They are more close to the Democrat, if you might call it, to the civil society, politics, and rights of LGBT, etc., etc. So I believe in these hard times, in such a situation, in Armenia, any government should pay more attention on bringing allies closer rather than talking about these cliches like global peace, regional peace, like global human rights or etc. I'm not against human rights, but we are in this condition that our borders are in attack and in danger. So we might more be serious with our allies, especially with Iran, Russia, China, India. By the way, this administration started good developing relations with Indian side. That is a positive side. But on the other hand, I'm not seeing much cooperation and the willingness to cooperate seriously with allies, as I have mentioned, such as Russia and Iran.
How do you see the visit of Nancy Pelosi to Armenia? Do you find it also maybe an attempt by Pelosi to tarnish the relations between Armenia and its allies in the region, especially Russia and Iran? And do you see it as a visit that could help Armenia and the Armenian cause to be so that the media could shed light on what's happening in Armenia, because Nancy Pelosi says she's also there to protect the democratic governance in Armenia. So she's particularly also interested in protecting the government of Pashinyan, who came to power after the so-called Velvet Revolution in 2018.
Yes, just as I have mentioned, you pointed out the question very rightly. I mean, in this stance, when your country is under attack, when you are in a war, it's never ended since 2020. What democratic government or autocratic government we can talk about? We need to protect our land. We need to protect our territories. We need to be in alarm, our army, and I believe this is not the right time in such conversation. Regarding Pelosi's visit, it's very similar, I think, to the visit she did in Taiwan. So it was this one wasn't such provocative. I call it provocative light to Iran and Russia. It was not that strict. I mean, as she were complaining against Chinese authorities, but I believe it somehow it has its positivity in a way that the Turks and the Azerbaijanis will get angry of this such big officials visit. We remember all the time any statements have done regarding the Armenian genocide issue from US, any senator or any president. The big noise came from Turkish side. This is positive in terms of diplomacy and in terms of media. But in terms of politics, constructivity and the reality, I don't see any touchable results will come out of this to Armenia. I mean, they are selling guns to Azerbaijan, but they are talking sympathetic about Armenia. This is not constructive cooperation, if we might call it. So I don't see any real seeable, touchable result that Armenia can gain from this. And Armenia must be very cautious because we shouldn't be a tool that they can come and use Armenia against Russia and Iran. Our allies are more important than Pelosi or other Pelosi's.
I mean, I hope that her visit has good intentions and she is genuinely interested in helping the Armenians. My experience with the American officials in the past few decades is very negative, and it's always something on the surface and another thing in during negotiations and behind closed doors. I hope this is not about gaining Armenian votes in the upcoming elections in the United States.
Yeah,
because,
that is also important issue that I believe she came
Armenians,
for that reason as well.
Yeah, because Armenians have also a strong lobby in the United States that they could mobilize voters. Because personally, I believe if she is genuinely interested in helping Armenia, she would first cut the military aid to Azerbaijan or ask for it in the Congress. House of Representatives, and also she should also ask Israel to stop delivering tons of weapons to Azerbaijan worth of billions of dollars, including unmanned vehicles like drones that have had a very decisive role in the outcome of the Second Artsakh War and also in the current aggression of Azerbaijan on Armenia. Ararat, this was all that I wanted to shed light with you for the audience of Syriana Analysis. I think it was very valuable what you have said and very objective. We wanted to address both sides of the story as much as we can. And let's hope that the issues would be resolved diplomatically, because personally, I'm just giving my personal opinion. I have very little faith in the current Armenian government and its ability to defend the Armenian sovereign territories. And I believe that there should be more work on connecting your interests with the interests of the allies, so that if something happens to you, the allies would be also encouraged to defend you. And I'm not I'm not saying that Russia is not responsible. I think Russia was responsible under the CSTO now to defend Armenia, but as I mentioned, they have bigger strategic interests, but also at the same time they have no confidence in the current government in Armenia. They don't find Pashinyan as a reliable partner, from what I have heard from many Russian experts and those close from the circles of the decision making in Russia, and lots of them also writing it publicly anyways. There is no secret about that. So Ararat, thank you very much for being my guest.
Pleasure.
And I will definitely host you back to follow up on the Armenian issue, especially if something new comes up. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the Syriana Analysis interview with Ararat Kostanian. If you're new, please consider subscribing and hit the like button. It's really great help. And also, if you want to support my independent journalistic work, you can become a patron or so many other means in the description below. And see you next time.